So who's the sponsor? Well, it's us. And that's what today's video should be about. Giving you a little bit of the background of how this works within the scope of this inspection between the individual GCP service entities that are involved in all of this, and just shedding some background on that so that you understand it in the way that we would also present it to the inspectors.
Welcome to part 3 in our series on being inspected as sponsor. Today we talk about who is the sponsor.
So let's start with the beginning. GCP Service International West GmbH is the sponsor of the trials which are in the focus of this inspection. And GCP Service International West has then subcontracted some of that work out to GCP Service International Limited & Co. KG, which is our headquarter here in Bremen, who executes the trial basically on a contract research organization level. And therefore, this system overall is very similar to what you would observe as a small biotech, as a small medical device company, where you have, 2, 3, 5 members of your team, and basically maybe like a chief medical officer, someone that is involved in the operational conduct of the trial, as a consultant sometimes only. And everything else, the operational coverage of the trial, is then outsourced to ideally an individual entity that performs on your behalf, and as a sponsor, you have oversight over that. So what are the usual challenges that we see in this setting, especially for smaller companies? Well, fundamentally, as a sponsor, what your job is to have oversight. That is what you need to do and what you need to have. Basically, everything relevant in the trial that directly relates back to patient safety, patient rights, data integrity, and overall quality of the trial should be under your supervision. In case there's any issues, you must be aware. Now, of course, this is really hard to execute if you have a small team and there is so much that's happening within a clinical trial. Therefore, you need to find a good means of understanding what is high enough priority that it needs to end up on your table, and which things can you delegate, how do you escalate issues, and how do you develop a framework and a quality assurance, like a quality management system that covers these elements of the trial. And that is a challenge that many sponsors have to face. If running trials is not your day-to-day business, but it's something that, of course, takes very high importance for you in a specific phase of your company development or as a clinic when a new trial is starting, but you have a lot of other things to do as well. And so then managing these two pulls for your attention without ever dropping the ball on oversight, that's the key challenge for a sponsor. And this is a setting which we are addressing through the separation between GCP Service International West and our headquarters, and really also having this oversight on one side and execution on the other. So let's dive a little bit into this sponsorship as a service concept. A couple of years back, really with a thought about how much of the regulations in Europe have changed and how it's impacting especially smaller or less experienced sponsors, we thought we need to change something so that clinical trials can still readily be conducted within Europe. And one of the elements that we thought about there is that we can offer as a company, because it's our day-to-day business to conduct and oversee trials as a contract research organization, we can certainly also offer that as a sponsor. And so here, sponsorship as a service concept comes in. And for us, we have set it up in such a way that we added a few standard operating procedures, SOPs, to one of our daughter entities, that's GCP Service International West, our office in Siegburg, to allow for them to act as a sponsor within trials and delegate all work then to the headquarter within this setting. And these SOPs, which we have drafted, deal with exactly the one thing that we want GCP Service International West to do as a sponsor. That's maintain oversight. So we have an SOPs that defines clearly what should be within the scope of oversight. How do we have parties on board that support us? How do we qualify them? And we'll get to some more of the details on that at a later stage. And yeah, basically, what do we need to do within a specific project to maintain oversight? And for this last piece, this project level oversight, we have created a form for us, sponsor oversight plan in which there's detailed instruction for each trial about its settings, the involved parties, which services are outsourced to which vendor, how we keep oversight over that, who does what, all of this in there. Of course, that's not the only thing that we have in place. We have contracts in place as well, which clearly have a task matrix associated with them. So we know which party has to do what. And these contractual agreements, of course, are a key element to outsourcing any level of responsibility as the sponsor. And that way, we can maintain oversight over our trials and we can act as sponsor on behalf of our partners. So practically speaking, I'm acting as a sponsor for my trials. What does that mean for me on a, let's say, week-to-week basis and for our studies? I need to have oversight. And for me, a key element to that is a well-structured and well-organized clinical trial management system. That's in place where I can myself look into the data and get all the oversights that I need, easily and accessible. We have such systems in-house. Our QCTMS series of products, specific focus on QCTMS RM, gives me all of that. Nice overviews over patient safety, statuses, risks throughout the trial, so that I get that information at a glance and whenever I need it to. Of course, there's lots of things that are happening in a trial and I need to be informed about them as well. So once a week or every 2 weeks, depending on the status of the trial and how much is happening, I sit down for a one-on-one with the project manager of the project to get the latest in terms of patient recruitment, safety, any other issues that are happening and whether everything is going smoothly. This preempts me needing to be contacted out of the blue with information only when issues arise, and I have a steady flow of information so I can parse anything that's happening within the concept and framework of that. This, of course, is also documented and filed, so we can really show that I have oversight over the trial. For really important elements such as patient safety, I also get automatic reports. Any serious adverse event entered for our trials, these are oncology trials, so there are many SAEs, I get an automatic email notification from. Really important for me, just so that I can see and I can feel, given the level of recruitment that we have and the types of events that are coming in, whether everything seems okay or not. I'm not the primary person that needs to process that information and put it in context, but it's good that I'm aware. Monthly safety reports, of course, also there. Overviews over how much of the documentation is filed and whether it's all filed in time and we're inspection ready. Also, these are key reports that I'm getting. And yeah, other than that, any issues that are being escalated that are in need of being escalated, of course, my team can reach me via Teams, via email, by giving me a quick call, the way that we usually do. So how does it feel for me now at this point with this inspection? It's exciting for me. It's slightly, it's slightly on the edge of my comfort zone, to be honest, because the project managers that are managing the day-to-day of these trials that spend hundreds of hours in these projects and making sure they run well are both on vacation at the time of the inspection. And I will be sitting there 3 days, 8 hours a day, from 9:30 through I think 5 or so every day with the inspectors, and I get to answer all of the questions. Where usually in a normal day-to-day, I would refer back and lean back on my team. Of course, even within the scope of the inspection, I will still do that. I have them in the background, they will support me. We have a dedicated person in the meeting that will parse any questions and queries that come up over to the team so that we can get the answers up and running quickly. But it's a safety net to have our great project managers, Annelies and Gabi, in the background, knowing that they can support me with additional information in case I ever need it. Like some communications between them and a local contract, a local CRA in Spain that happened 3 months ago. I will not be aware of these levels of details, but sometimes they might be necessary to answer some questions. So in the run-up of the inspection, a lot of what I will be doing is getting familiar to a much higher degree with all of this information for the inspection than I would usually need to do within the scope of a clinical trial, just so that I can be well prepared in answering all of the questions and make the inspection as smooth as possible. But I like that. It allows me really also personally a very nice hands-on feeling again with clinical trials, much closer than I usually get to do in my managerial role that I have. So I love that as well. And the interaction with the team, the energy and the dynamics, that's just great. So I look forward to it. Of course, it's going to be challenging, but we grow through these challenges. And I really look forward to getting that feedback, that hands-on feedback from the inspectors at the end of August. So over the next week, we will compile more and more of what we do in the run-up to the inspections and how the inspections go itself. I already shared some details of how we manage the projects, and we are happy to dive even more into the details here. Especially once we have the feedback from the inspectors in terms of how they view our process setup, whether they see any shortcomings, which things they would love to have changed, or whether they say this is exactly how you can do it. Because this gives us the reassurance that given the current scope of regulations within Europe and how I want to say rather critical Germans interpret them, this is fine to run clinical trials. That means you will also succeed in your next inspection. So I hope you follow along on that journey, and it gives you as much valuable input as we hope it will.